Hello, I'm Scott Brady with Overland Journal and Expedition Portal, and I'm out here with my Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster pickup and my Scout Yoho pop-up. Let's take a little walk around. All right, so why the Ineos Quartermaster? For me, it's a new vehicle on the market. We always like to test new vehicles, and I'm not being paid to use this truck. I really want to see how it works in the backcountry, because it's the first time in a long time that we've had a heavy-duty midsize available to our market. It's really meant for long-distance travel. These vehicles were actually designed for crossing Africa, which is what I did with the Grenadier wagon over the last couple years. I crossed Africa from south to north, and now I really want to see how the pickup does in conditions like this. But the cool thing about having all that payload is that I get to put a camper on top of it. Okay, so why the Scout campers? So this is my second Scout camper, and I bought them both personally because it's a camper that I wanted to own personally. I didn't want to have to send it back after the test period was over. And the reason why I really like Scouts is because of their minimalist design. So for me as a traveler, I prefer to keep my vehicles very simple, as close to stock as possible. And I also like to keep them really light so I have good performance in the backcountry. And this Scout Yoho pop-up is one of the lightest available on the market. This one, the way I have it configured, is under 1,000 pounds, which is well within the payload of this truck. I also like the fact that it has such a simple exterior, and it's also a very durable exterior. So these are composite panels that are bonded to these metal corners for reinforcement, but they can take brush scrapes, they can take even impacts. These are very strong panels that also have a good R value. So they have good insulation for when I'm in really cold conditions, even like I was last night. But the reason why I went with the Yoho pop-up is I wanted to downsize. My previous camper was a Kenai, and I had it on a full-size truck, and I just wanted something more nimble, more capable off-road. So that's the real key advantage of something like the Yoho pop-up, is the fact that I can lower my center of gravity and I can lower my overall height so that I can fit in tight trails, fit under tree branches, even fit in parking garages many times. And most importantly, I can put this into a high cube container for shipping anywhere in the world. So let's talk about how I configured my Yoho pop-up for my travel. So I didn't include the heater, which would normally be over my left shoulder, but I did include some additional water storage because I like to stay in the backcountry for long periods of time. The other accessory that I fitted to the outside is their accessory rails that go down the side of the camper. You can see they take up a little bit of that space between the camper and the truck bed. Visually, that really helps. But these are also quite useful for mounting max tracks, for example. You can mount other accessories to the side of the camper. And then in the corner, this is actually one of the key features of a Scout, is that the lifting jacks can be removed easily. And that actually saves you 120 pounds off the camper. So when I remove the jacks, I'm that much lighter, lower my center of gravity, and I have that much more compact vehicle for the trail. So another unique feature of the Scout is these ratcheting tie downs. So you can just lock them into place like that and get the camper nice and secure. Now let's check out the inside. So let's talk about the inside of this Yoho pop-up. You can see that really open feeling that we have. It's actually very spacious, which is surprising because this is a 5-foot bed truck with a 6-foot bed camper, and it's on a midsize. So this is one of their smallest campers that they produce. But because it doesn't have all this overhead cabinetry and it's got these big open windows, you get this strong sense of space. So I like that. So it's comfortable to spend time working in, sitting in, being in camp, even in bad weather. Yesterday we had a lot of wind and rain and everything else that was hammering us. So this is that little retreat away from the storm. But then beyond that, one of the things that really attracts me to the Scout products is the fact that they are so simple. I don't want a lot of complexity in anything that I own because it just takes away from the experience. So the total extent of the plumbing in this camper is a drain tube that goes to the outside that you can capture in a bucket. So there's nothing to clog, there's no water pump to fail. If you want running water, you add some pressure to the Lifesaver jerry can and you're off to the races. I also like the fact that there's not a lot of drawers in here. There's no complex drawer system that again adds weight and has the opportunity to fail. I just store the equipment in these small soft bags and I stick it into the cubbies, and that keeps the weight down. And there is a surprising amount of storage. I actually have room on this camper for water. I have room on this camper. I have a Trelino composting toilet that fits underneath the dinette. And I have storage space that goes under the dinette that I can have my chairs and some camp tools and some additional accessories. And then what I'm sitting on right now is actually a 55-liter Dometic fridge. So there's all that you need in the camper, but nothing that you don't, or nothing that's going to either add unnecessary weight or expense. So let's talk a little bit about how I cook in this camper. You can outfit these with an integrated stove. I like to avoid permanently plumbed propane for safety reasons, but in this case I just use a Lindahl valve canister stove that's made by Snow Peak, and that also allows me to easily remove it outside so I can cook outside or inside. And then when I'm not using it, I've got this big work surface and I actually use it as a standing desk. The other thing that this camper has that I really love is their new power systems. My first Scout came with a Goal Zero system, which was fine, it was reliable, but it didn't have a lot of capacity, and it also required a lot of space around it, so it wasn't very space efficient. So they've now got their own proprietary electrical system that uses all Victron components, which are known for their reliability. I've used them on crossing Pacific in a sailboat. I used all those components. I'm very familiar with them, and I'm familiar with their durability. And I also have added a lot more battery capacity because of that. And then of course, the one thing that we all want in a camper is a great place to sleep. And right over my shoulder here is a double bed. So it's easy for me and another individual to sleep in that bed comfortably. Talk a little bit about the tent. So there's upsides to a pop-up, which means I've got a lower overall height, lower the center of gravity, easier to fit it all kinds of places, including on the trail. But then you have to have something to keep the elements out when you pop the top up. And this is one of the highest quality tents I've seen on the market. It easily is removable and replaced if you needed to, because it slides into these channels around the top and the base camper. It has 360-degree panoramic windows, and several of those windows can be opened completely as a means of ingress, egress, or if you wanted to pass things out of the camper by not using the rear door. So you can really get a lot of airflow because we have bug screens in place, or we can even open a window entirely if you really wanted to expand the airflow. All right, so let's talk about how the camper top lifts. It's unconventional. It's actually a much better design and it requires less effort. So a traditional pop-up is usually lifted from the forward side and the aft side of the camper, and it requires a lot of effort. Whereas this camper, once you unlatch the sides, you just put a shoulder into it and you kind of get that started. You push up into the camper top with your legs, and then there's all this bar work in here that you use to actually kind of do a shoulder press to lift it up. But it can be done someone my size or someone of a lot smaller stature. So it's a lot easier to lift than the traditional campers. I've had a lot of lessons learned in crossing all 7 continents and using a bunch of different vehicles and campers to do so. And this is what I choose to drive now. This is what I use, is because it's simple and effective. But the most important thing is to go. The most important thing is to decide what works for you, what fits within your budget, what meets the needs of your family, and to go out and see the world.